Okay, let me see. Last hour I was telling you about what happened in the Senate last night. The Senate passed a package, $95 billion. It does not secure our border. It goes in and takes more money and straps your children and your grandchildren with another $95 billion. It gives money to Taiwan, which hacks off the Chinese, and that's fine. But, gang, let's be honest. We are not going to fight a war in Taiwan. Maybe one day we would have, but we cannot do it. It would stretch just this alone would kill and cripple the United States. We don't have the supply lines. So if we wanted to protect Taiwan, our supply line would take all of the assets we have all over the world just to supply everything we need for Taiwan. Now, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. I think Taiwan should be its own nation. I don't want to see China gobble up another nation. But we cannot do it. The days of us saying we can protect everywhere and do everything, those are over. They've been over for a very long time. We won the Cold War, and then we lost the peace. And quite honestly, I'm going to blame a lot of this on people like me. Okay? We won the Cold War. Yeah, tear down that wall. And then we just thought it was okay. And then we continued on all of these endless wars. We listened to presidents like George H.W. Bush, who was a spook. We've listened to the State Department over and over again. Have you noticed that since the United Nations happened, things are not really much better with war? Yeah, we haven't had a global war yet, but we're setting everything else on fire. And since Tragedy and Hope, a book that was written in the 1960s that explained there will only be police actions and no clear winners in war anymore. It will end kind of in a standoff. It will end like it did in Iraq, like it did in the Gulf War, like it did in Afghanistan, like it did in Vietnam. That's the plan now. And it's out in the open. It's not some conspiracy. That's the way we fight wars now. I don't want to fight a war. I don't want to spend 20 years fighting a war and have it end like Afghanistan. You and I both know the United States of America could have gone in there and we could have kicked Afghani's ass and got out. But that's not what we do because we now have to nation build. I don't want a nation build. Have you noticed how much the world resents us? Why does the world resent us? Well, for one thing, new information, we're giant hypocrites. I always thought that Americans were good and gracious and we were going over to help people. You're not going over to help people when you go into very, very religious countries and say, hey, by the way, you want any of our aid, you got to have your kids aborted. You have to have drag queen shows. You think they're going to like us or resent us? You think they're going to like us when you say, oh, we don't torture. We're beyond that. We definitely don't torture. And then we ghost plane people to a regime in Egypt that we kept propped up forever so they could torture people for us? The policies of the last 100 years don't work. They don't work. Stu said last hour, Glenn, 45% of Republicans want the Ukrainian aid. And because I said, when are the Republicans going to listen to their base? Well, it's fairly split, 55-45. Okay. So I'll never be able to make the case to the Lindsey Grahams of the world because I don't know Lindsey Graham. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen his bottom line. Is he rich from Raytheon? I don't know. Or is he just a war hawk that just wants war all the time because he actually believes it? I don't know. But I will tell you this. The world is changing. And if you don't recognize that, you are going to be left in the dust. Now, everything is changing. And that's what everybody keeps telling you. Well, the biggest thing that is changing is our politicians are not following the Constitution. That's the root of all of our evils. We are not following the Constitution of the United States. Congress is no longer in charge of the purse. Congress doesn't pass the laws. It's all left in the hands of bureaucrats who make all these little edicts and all these little changes, and they turn this dial by 10% and this dial by 5% and this one by 25%. And before you know it, you're a freaking slave. And who do you go to? Doesn't matter who you vote for, because they don't make the laws anymore. So you get a new Speaker of the House. What does he do? He completely abandons everything because he's had briefings now. Oh, well, you know what? If they've changed you that much, I think you should brief the world. I think you should brief the United States. I keep hearing how dangerous the world is. No crap. Really? It's dangerous. Do you think it's more dangerous since Joe Biden got in or less dangerous? It's been getting more and more dangerous for the last 25 years. Why? Because the last 25 years, the last 75 years, the State Department has been running everything. They don't care who the president is. It started with the creation of Israel. The State Department threatened the duly elected president of the United States, Harry Truman. You're not going to make that statement. Yes, we are. No, you're not. I'm the president of the United States, so I will dictate policy. He beat them to the microphone. That's the only reason why the state of Israel exists, because the duly elected president, who had the responsibility to set the pace, beat the State Department and the deep state to the microphones. So, yeah, we are changing. And it is important to change, but Stu is right. It is important for us to state why we're changing. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect different results. I could be here all day giving you examples of this. The Fed. The Fed comes up with a plan. It makes things worse. So we go back to the Fed. They make a plan, and it makes things worse. So we go back to the Fed, and they make a plan, and it makes things worse. We need to protect ourselves. So we go to the Department of Homeland Security, and we lose rights, and things don't change. So we go to the Homeland Security, and we make changes. We're not protected. We lose more rights, and nothing changes. Look, this is so simple, it's ridiculous. Nothing will change unless something changes. I say that to my kids all the time now. Nothing will change unless something changes. Dad, how come this keeps happening to me? Because nothing will change unless something changes. Unless you change, unless you do something different, it's going to keep happening. Everything in our country, we're losing more and more rights. And so what do? We elect the same kind of people over and over again, and we lose more rights. And so we're like, yeah, well, we need some more people, and we hire the same kind of people, and we lose more rights. What's missing in this? I was just in South Carolina. By the way, thank God, South Carolina. I mean, you didn't vote for George Washington. You voted against the anti-slavery thing in the Declaration of Independence, and you did start the Civil War. Can you get this one right? And I think the answer is yes. I met with some of the leadership of South Carolina, the Freedom Caucus, and all the people standing up, and I asked every single one of them, Glenn, could I get your endorsement? I don't endorse anybody. But let me ask you this. Where do you stand on the Constitution? And if they didn't say it's everything, it's the root of everything I believe in, it's the only thing worth fighting for, I'm not interested. And I will tell you that the progress they're making in South Carolina, the bills that they have shut down, and the Republicans hate them. Hate them. How can you possibly make Mike Lee into an extremist? Have you ever talked to Mike Lee? He's the furthest thing from an extremist. Mike is the most mild-mannered sweetheart of a guy I've ever met. He's so nice. He is so not throwing people under the bus ever. He pisses me off at times because I'm like, stop it. You're making me look bad because I don't have the restraint you do. He's known in the state as an extremist. How is that possible? He's so extreme. He says we should play by the rules. He's so extreme. He keeps checking this document and going, I can't do that because it's not in this. What document is it? It was a document of a revolution. It was a revolutionary. It was the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. How can this guy be a radical? It's time to change, gang. And it's not time to have a civil war. You should pray that we don't have a civil war. Do you know what that's like? Do you know what that's like? Do you know what that would happen? We balkanize? Do you know what your life is like? You don't want any of that. Anybody who's like, it's time we split up. First of all, I ain't going anywhere because I'm not leaving my country. I'm not leaving my country. Well, my country left me. No, you'd be leaving because they have Washington and all of the documents. I'm not leaving without the documents. I didn't abandon everything that the monuments stand for. I'm still for them. I'm not wearing a mask in public because I'm not shouting death to America. You're not the revolutionary. You may have changed, but that's because you're waking up. When you wake up, you start seeing, wow, this doesn't work. Well, what doesn't work? The Constitution or the people who are ignoring it?